Hi folks, Tony Neill here from Classic Clashes, and well, we've got a unique game coming up on March the 22nd. Of course, it's the Kalannie Football Club from the Central Wheatbelt League way over there in Western Australia, and they're playing Bannockburn from the Geelong and District Football League in Victoria. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome along the three-time premiership coach of Kalannie, Daniel Akers. First of all, welcome Daniel.
Thanks for having me, Tony. Appreciate it.
Fantastic, mate. Kalannie, little place northeast of Perth, 260 kilometres, 3-hour drive. Of course, your history, Wanneroo, Cervantes, the Eagles in the Waffle, and now, of course, coaching Kalannie the last 3 years. Tell us about the Kalannie story, because it's fascinating. They fell over in the 80s, got going again, I think, around 84, 80s and 90s, and we're just puttering along. Tell us what you know about Kalannie, first of all.
Yeah, obviously the club's been around for quite a bit now, and it's had its ups and downs throughout the journey. And I think from, my time spent there, one of the things that's really stood out is how much there's been a lot of long-term, players or contributors to the club over the club's history. And obviously, there's been a lot of standout sort of people that really contributed to pulling the club out of the recession that you mentioned around the 80s and the 90s. And obviously, with it being a pretty small sort of country town, when you're looking at the central wheat belt out there, most of the towns are pretty tiny. Obviously, community is a pretty big thing out there, and being able to have a group of individuals that can come together and pull together with one another to make things work. You're definitely reliant on a lot of volunteers and people to invest quite a fair bit of time. So it's a very tight-knit community, and a lot of contributors out there.
Well, Daniel, it's interesting when we talk about that past and the hard work in the early days that was done in regards to recruiting and building the committee, the funding, and of course they were playing on dirt back in the day, and I understand some work was done to get some grass on the oval and waterboard in and so on, and we're going to explain that story and expand on it further as we continue on with other interviews down the track. But we go to the present, because all of that hard work previously becomes legacy for now, and that helps you as a coach. You've got something to build on with this club. And if we look at those last three grand finals, well, 2022, a 52-point win over Quarter, and 23 and 24 respectively, 61 and 74-point win over Beacon. So tell us a little bit about, that's the sporting side, the Kalannie community. And of course, the next part of that question is the primary industry, which is wheat and gypsum. So it's a really blue-collar, hard-working area by the sound of it. Tell us a little bit about Kalannie.
So, it's a very, very small town, like I said. I think there'll probably only be around 250 people probably in town. So, like I said, very tight-knit community. And spot on in terms of like what drives the town, obviously with the wheat and the gyps. And I think that, both the footy club and the industry are pretty much tied to one another. I think when you've got such a small town so far out of Perth, there's not necessarily too much for the community to get around. I think that's where football really sticks in quite nicely and gives the community something to kind of bond over and come together every weekend during the footy season. And the club wouldn't survive without a lot of the major contributors from the wheat farming and whatnot. And it really comes together quite nicely. And so it's a good way that both try to give back to one another. Pretty much without either one, both don't really exist. It'd be pretty hard being out there with nothing much else to do, sort of thing. So, the footy club has a really unique role in the town's, sustainability, really, when it comes down to it. And I know that in the 3 years that I've played there, you see all the locals come down in what we call the kennel, which is like, a bit of a sort of custom tin shed with a bar and the TV and all the memorabilia up and going. And to see all the locals come out and, banging on the tin shed and all that sort of stuff every time I kick a goal, you really get like a nice tight-knit community sort of feel to it. So, really, really great place to play. And the committee in the town, everyone gets around you. They treat you like you're superstars and stuff like that out there. So it's really, really nice sort of family sort of connection.
It's an extension, isn't it, of the, you've got your playing group, which might be 44 people, and your coaches, and, it might extend out to 50, and a couple of trainers and that, so you might end up with 60 people. And then you've got your members and supporters and everything. And Maslow's law of hierarchy teaches we all want to be a part of a tribe. And I love the bit about coming and banging on the shed. They're an actual part of feeling what's happening when that goal is scored, and you celebrate the highs and the lows together. And hence the next part of that question is, what does a sports club mean to the area? So it's not only the game day support, it's I'm not sure whether you do Thursday night meals or anything like that, but people come and watch a bit of training Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other side of it, which is very big, Daniel, is the support and the relationships. So people come to a game of footy and they'll be watching the footy, but they'll be talking about their crops. So if you've had a good year, a bad year, what sort of yield that they've had, and so on. So it's so much more than just a footy club in a little country town in the middle of nowhere, isn't it? There's so much more in that. And we talk about mental health and relationships and so on. So just expand on that a little bit, and perhaps some of the feedback you've had from supporters, especially with having success.
Yeah, I think it's very true in terms of like the locals coming down and talking about how things are going from a crop standpoint. I know when I first came out to the wheat belt, had very little knowledge about all the little factors and stuff. I was pretty green to it. And after having 3 years, even the players that are there for 1 year or 2 years, you come out there with a whole new understanding of like all the influences with the weather, and I guess how volatile it can also be out there with all the stresses and whatnot. And you definitely notice when it's a good year, like I guess momentum and morale when the town's up and about. But when it's a bit more of a struggling year, that's where everyone sort of leans on each other quite heavily. And you see a lot of positive things come out of those more challenging times as well, which is always great to see. But I think you just I can't talk about how much every year you go out there, your education level around it comes up another level, and you start to have conversations back in Perth about what's important and understanding the big picture sort of thing like that. And then you tie into the mental health side of things. I think we're really fortunate with the group of players that we have that come out there. They're so motivated to connect with the local town as well, because obviously it being such a small town, there's a reliance on bringing guys out of Perth to keep things going. And I think we've been really fortunate over the last 3 years to have a group of guys that have made really long friendships, not only just with the playing group, but the locals and anyone that comes out to support the club and whatnot. It's just a really, like I said, I keep saying this again and again, it's a really, really tight knit community, probably one of the better ones I've ever been a part of, to be honest. It's very, very, very committed group.
And just like to relate that, what have Kalannie and Bannockburn got in cahoots with each other? I can tell you, having played in Victoria and South Australia in country footy, like you said, you walk up. I'm not sure whether you live in the town or whether you travel in each week, whatever. But Saturday morning before the game, you walk down that main street. You are. I know it sounds weird, but you're like a celebrity, a rockstar. Everyone wants to come and have a talk to you or just wish you luck. And some people don't even know your name, but they know your number. That's good luck today number, whatever it is, and I can't wait to see you. And then they travel. There's some funny stories about the whole community travels to away games and things like that. So, you almost live for Saturday. You don't want to wish your life away, but you live for Saturday because it's such a great day, the feeling amongst yourselves. Let's talk about the game itself. You touched on this. There's already 100 people so far from around 200 in the area. We know already 100 are locked in that are going to come across to Bannockburn to watch this game. So your perspective, I guess, on Kalannie before you got there, and then what it's like now, knowing that you've got this support coming across as well.
Yeah, I think initially coming in, you don't really know what to expect, to be honest. You come in there and obviously you hear it's a town of 200 to 250 people. Some of the other country towns that play for obviously a little bit bigger. So you don't really necessarily know what to come in. But then it's a weird one because I guess you get to connect with everyone more closely. It feels bigger in a different sort of way. And when you hear, I guess, the commitment from the town to get over there and support the boys that are traveling over there,
Yeah.
yeah, there won't be many people in town. It'll definitely be quiet, more so than it normally is. But yeah, I think that just goes to show like the town moves together as one. And that's really representing like how many people are making that commitment to go over. It's obviously not cheap and
Yeah.
taking time out from work and whatnot. It's a big commitment for everyone involved. But to see everyone make that sort of step, and I can only imagine how enjoyable and fun and exciting the weekend's going to be when we get over there, having everyone like that over. And like you said, the connection between the two clubs. I'm sure there's going to be a number of people that probably haven't seen each other in quite some time that are able to reconnect
Yes.
and whatnot. So that'll definitely be special to see.
Kalannie itself, we go back. You've had 3 premierships, but not knowing this prior. What attracted you to the football club and the area originally? Why did you go there as Daniel Akers to come in and coach?
Yeah, so my country footy, I guess, journey started off at the Cervantes Football Club. And I was really fortunate to be around a number of guys that were, for lack of a better term, very methodical about how they go about country football and understanding, it can change like that. And if you take your foot off the pedal, it can fall apart very quickly. So had the luxury of learning from a lot of really sort of committed individuals from a structure standpoint. And during that time when I was playing for Cervantes back in Perth, we'd have a number of other country clubs that would train together. And one of them was Kalannie. And I had a mate that I'd known for years that played on the team. He actually, I think, he's been at the club for like 12 years. He's probably not the longest country football player from Perth, I reckon.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would train with them and, having a conversation with a lot of the Kalannie boys that were training down in Perth. They were obviously having a bit of a struggling sort of run for a few years there. But you saw them train. They were such good blokes. They would give everything they could. They just needed a little bit more of a structure and guidance and just retweaking a few things just from how the club ran. And so there came an opportunity where my mate who was playing for the club, he knew I had an interest in getting into coaching and potentially exploring like a player coaching role. And so one thing led to another with the previous coach wanting to step away. And so there was obviously a bit of a vacancy and an opportunity that kind of created itself there. And basically the club came to me and said, would you be interested in potentially doing it? We know you have a bit of interest. And I said, this is probably like the challenge was coming around probably a bit earlier than I expected. But after having a bit of chat with a few people that were close to me, and even people from Cervantes, like Dale Simmons, who runs a lot of things at that club, he was really, really supportive of the opportunity.
Right.
And I saw an opportunity, I guess, to mimic what we had established and what I'd learned from at Cervantes and trying to bring that to Kalannie. And obviously, we're really fortunate in the 3 years to be able to, have a lot of success with that and turn things around. And not only the other thing, leave the club in a better place as well than what you found. I think that's like at the end of the day, that's something that you really want to achieve with any sort of tenure when you come on board. It's that was pretty much the long-winded answer in terms of how it all got there. And it's only been up really since coming on board.
Well, I think Kalannie would have been very happy as well because I know you weren't so, but you been at Cervantes because Wanneroo, where you started out, but you're also on the Eagles waffle list. So you're around that elite level of preparation. You're around a lot of great coaches, and of course you take a little bit out of each one of those, your own experiences, and then you obviously portray yourself. You stay true to your own core values as a coach, and it's working, mate. You've got the recipe right. The game itself, there's plenty of interest, and as we said, 100 or so people so far from Kalannie coming over. I know there's a huge amount of people at Bannockburn. I've got mates that coach in other teams in those leagues and friends and so on in that area. It's an Australia-wide interest because it's such a unique story. We understand, and this is a possibility, we talk about people like Patrick Cripps, who, of course, come out of WA, and your brother Blake, who's been is at his third club now, but they're from Carlton, maybe coming down. Now, I know you can't let out too much. Any chance that any of them might be playing or just coming along to support at least?
Well, I think they've got a game on the Thursday night before the game against Hawthorn that a few of the boys are planning on going to and have a look at. So,
yep.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. I would be surprised if they pulled that one out of their hats. But yeah, like I think there's a bit of a plan to kind of reach out to my brother and just saying if they either have a weekend free to come down and support the boys
Beautiful.
and get around it. Obviously, their schedules are pretty flat out, and my brother's just had his first kid, so he's all hands on deck at home. But he's normally pretty good with trying to make a bit of time to get down with a few of the boys. So yeah, I'm sure when we reach out to them, they'll be able to do something nice for us. And
Nah,
I don't
fantastic.
know about playing, but
Yeah.
maybe run some water
Well,
potentially.
sport's the winner, isn't it? You know, that's the big thing. And,
Yeah.
and the extension of that is the community. We talk about the media attention. We have seen already an article written. I think that was allowed to say in the Geelong Advertiser, but it was also shared with Kalannie as well. That was a full-page article. Of course, we ourselves at Classic Clashes and Filming Footy live streaming. So for the people watching this interview that are over in Kalannie and extended, even your opposition and so on that might want to scout a little bit and see what you're up to this year. But it's Australia-wide. It's actually worldwide where people overseas watch as well. So we're live streaming it across the country, which is quite unique for what we call a scratch match or a social game. But do you do much homework on the opposition? What are you expecting from Bannockburn? Because I think it's exciting because there's your style, your team style of football, which we'll come to that in a moment. You know, do you set up defensively first and then all out attack? Do you want the ball in forward half? Which is great to say that, but you still got to score goals. And what you might expect from Bannockburn. Have you spoken to anyone or have you watched any footage of the Victorian teams like to hit in pretty hard, you know? What do you know about Bannockburn?
Yeah, I mean, I think just generally understanding the common differences between Victorian and WA football. Obviously,
Mm.
Victorian, they typically have a lot more smaller grounds and used to more wet weather conditions and whatnot. So,
Yep,
yeah, typically you hear more physicality wise is
yep,
pretty common trait with the Victorian teams. Obviously, with WA, we play a lot bigger grounds, and so our running pace and stuff like that kind of comes into play there as well. We're definitely not small in terms of the guys we've got coming over, so hopefully that kind of balances things out a little bit. But again, like I think that looking at like I haven't gone too crazy into detail with it, but having a look at Bannockburn, you can tell they're a decent sized club with multiple levels and grades and stuff like that. So they'll have a pretty good crop of players to pull from for their senior side. And so, yeah, we're expecting a pretty solid sort of hit out. But again, I think, part of the reason why we're all coming together, I think the game's going to be played in pretty good spirits, and we're looking forward to having a good clash with them and, enjoying the night afterwards with them, probably on a few froths and go
well,
from there.
that's the interesting bit there, Daniel, is the training together on Thursday. We're travelling over to film the training, get some interviews as well. So both teams will train together. So I'm not 100% sure whether you wear the orange tops and they wear the green tops and she's actually full bore. Is it going to be let's do circle work together as an example, or are you going to have one end and they'll have the other? So we'll wait and see on that. Let's not get too far ahead with that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, we'll see how
And
we
I
go.
understand this is probably more than 100 people coming over and the coaches and everything. I'm a bit excited as to what might happen on the Thursday night and also the Friday, because you
Yeah.
guys have to look after yourself to play on the Saturday. But it's huge, and I hope to think it's not a one-off. It's going to be huge for both communities, and we're happy to broadcast it Australia-wide. Let's talk about your team, Kalannie. You've got local and travelling players, which a lot of country teams do now. So explain to us how that works, because it's 260 odd kilometres, how they gel, and we understand there's a bus, because our camera went back on the Sunday. We were lucky to get him back after you won the grand final. He's learnt songs he's never known in his life on that bus on the way back. So
Yeah,
just tell us how that
he
works.
actually,
Yeah, God.
yeah, I was going to say the cameraman, he hung in there pretty well
Yeah.
for the late hours. So yeah, well, so we got around him and looked after him, so that was really good. But yeah, obviously, with WA, there's obviously varying different sort of country leagues for different sort of size towns and populations that sort of feed them. With Kalannie coming from the central wheat belt, typically smaller towns, there's obviously minimal, I guess, players
Yep.
locally in town. So I think for Kalannie, it's typically sits around sort of 6 to 8 to 10 sort of local players in town that play, and then the rest obviously coming out of Perth. So normally there's a situation where quite a few of the boys that are playing country football from other clubs will all train together
Yes.
twice a week back in Perth, and then I would normally organise the bus to come pick everyone up from the training ground in the morning. So we get ready nice and early because obviously it's not a short drive.
Yeah.
And then we make our way out via bus with all the players and come out there. And from there, we do a lot of things in the pre-season to get like a lot of the local boys and the Perth-based players to kind of mesh together. And we've been really fortunate that probably over the last I guess my 3-year tenure that we've had a lot of players that stick around for multiple years. So those relationships are pretty well established from year on year. So there's normally 2 or 3 new Perth guys each year, which is an exciting part of it. I think that's what we actually kind of enjoy because it's guys' first opportunity to come out and play country football, and it's their first goal they kick, and getting around them and showing them, I guess, what some of the best kept secrets are with country football. So yeah, we have Kalannie is quite unique with this. I've never been to another club that really has this, but they normally do a pre-season boat party launch where all the local committee come down, all the local players and the Perth boys. So it's an opportunity for the new Perth players to meet all the locals in town and stuff. And we normally go out for a few hours on the boat and get to know one another. That's always like a ripper time and stuff like that.
Does it even pull up anchor? Does it leave the jetty?
Yeah, probably good if it didn't leave the jetty, but no, we get back in one piece, so it's always a good evening.
So Daniel, that poses the question, mate. We're almost just on 4 weeks away from this game, and any new recruits out there, if they want to come along and put in a good 4-week period of training, they might just get themselves a little trip from Western Australia to Victoria. Gee, is it too late? Are you still looking for recruits, or have you topped up? You've got enough.
No, I think you can always. Yeah, you can always squeeze in a couple more, I think, for the right sort of names and players. Obviously, this is a pretty unique recruiting tool in itself. Not many clubs can, offer a pre-season game to Melbourne. And like you said, hopefully this is something that we can repeat for years to come, sort of thing. But yeah, for a lot of players, to have the opportunity to come and partake in the weekend for such a good cause and whatnot, it's a pretty handy recruiting tool. So. You try and use that as a tool to get guys on board, have a good weekend, and they want to come around full time for the rest of the year. So I think the club's already kind of leveraged that a little bit with a few of the new players and stuff, and the club's already gotten some really high talented guys coming on board like Cam Stedman and all that sort of stuff. So looks like it'll be an exciting weekend and year to come.
All right, Daniel, listen, mate, we can't wait. The excitement builds for this unique battle of two teams, 3,294 kilometres apart, and if you were to drive, it's 1 day and 11 hours from either side of the country. Good luck with your preparation and travelling. We will see you in the week of the game on March the 22nd. So, Daniel Akers, thank you so much. Fine representative of the Kalannie Football Club. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it, mate.